Hello and welcome to LFC Focus. It is Champions League draw reaction time after Liverpool have just found out their opponents in the quarterfinals of the European Cup and their potential opponents as well for the semi-finals. And before we get into all the permutations and who's playing who and who might play who later on in the competition, first things first, I'm happy with it. I'm pretty pleased, and if you'd asked me to pick out the exact draw that Liverpool would get, it would have been pretty much bang on what we got today. So personally, I'm really looking forward to it now, and it's definitely given me an even bigger boost in terms of how optimistic I am that Liverpool can do some serious damage in this competition and maybe, fingers crossed, lift the big shiny thing at the end of it as well. Let me know what you think of the draw down in the comments below, whether you're happy with it, whether you think we're doomed, whether we're going to go out in the quarterfinals, the semi-finals, get beat in the final, or whether you think we're going to win the big one at the end of the season as well. But going into the actual teams we're going to play, it is of course Real Madrid in the quarterfinals. A bit of a revenge tie for Liverpool. I know Jurgen Klopp will instantly look to play all of this down as he normally does, and none of the players will really speak about it. They'll all be trying to interview Mo Salah and asking him whether he's going to just deck Sergio Ramos within the first 5 minutes or anything like that. Like I said, they'll play it down, but inside, a lot of these players will still be smarting a little bit from that defeat in Kiev, and they will want revenge, and we as fans will want it as well, because one of the things that did definitely hurt about that final, in amongst everything else, was I still think we were better than Real Madrid. I still think that, you know, if you take away everything that happens during the game, on paper, the way we played that season, we were the better side. And I think that's the same case going into this game as well, which is perhaps a cautionary tale that you can't just take our form and Real Madrid's form and extrapolate a result from that. You cannot account for what will happen in the game. And we all know that Real Madrid, as much as they've had many, many rocky patches over the last few seasons, when it comes to this stage of the tournament, when it really comes down to it, they do tend to find something, whether that's a good performance, whether it's a wonder goal from one of their star players, whether it's, you know, a little bit of foul play from one of their centre-backs, shall we say. Generally, they know what it takes to get over the line here. And that's perhaps one of the reasons that I'm happy to get Real Madrid now rather than in the semis or the final stage. Because I think if you got them then they become a serious prospect. Zidane has that kind of, gets them into that hunker-down, war bunker mentality where they just find a way to win no matter what. Whereas at this point, they still look like a team that is in, not necessarily turmoil. I don't think they're all over the show. They've had their dips and their troughs at various points in this season, and I watched a little bit of their tie against Atalanta as well, where they didn't impress massively. Obviously, we as Liverpool fans know what kind of opposition Atalanta are, and we know that sorry, if you're at your absolute best, then you can take them to the cleaners as we did. So they didn't hugely impress me or blow me away or scare me in that game in the round of 16. But it is, of course, a different prospect in the quarterfinals. They've also got injury problems as well that probably would have cleared up potentially towards the later end of the season. So this is a good time to play them in that regard. Eden Hazard will almost definitely be out. I don't know the current prognosis for the latest injury he's picked up, but even if he recovers from that in time, he'll probably pick up another one, knowing him, before the quarterfinals. So hopefully we don't have to deal with him, because we as Liverpool fans know he's been a bit of a scourge for us over the past few seasons. The danger players are really, you know, a bit of the old guard. Karim Benzema always comes up with big goals on big occasions, as we saw in Kiev. They've still got Modric, who's running the show from midfield. Sergio Ramos is still flinging elbows left, right and centre from the heart of the defence. So they've got players to worry about there, but Liverpool have got players to hurt Real Madrid as well. It's also incidental that we'll be playing home in the second leg. That doesn't really make a huge difference nowadays. Obviously, the stadium will be empty for both games. I think we can pretty much say with all surety, which is a shame, because you think, you know, it almost doesn't matter what happens in an away leg if it comes first and we get to take them back to our place in the second leg. We as Liverpool fans are almost happy with any result as long as we're still in the tie, because we know at Anfield on our day we can beat anyone by any scoreline pretty much, and that has been proved over the last few years as well. So it's a shame that we lose that advantage, but I still think it's nice to play at Anfield in the home leg. Maybe we get to play at the Eastern European Anfield as well in Budapest. That's also a possible shout for the semi-final stage, depending depending on the opposition. So moving on to the semi-finals, of course, if Liverpool do beat Real Madrid, and personally I put us as favourites, you can never really have a surefire winner in any tie at this stage of the competition, regardless of the gap in class or the perceived gap in class between the teams. Anyone can spring a surprise when it gets to the business end of the tournament, but I would put us as the favourites over Real Madrid, given their current form and the way we seem to really, find our best football on the European stage as we did against Leipzig. But moving on to the semi-final, we will, if we get through, be playing the winners of Chelsea and Porto, which I think is a reasonably favourable tie. If I'd been able to pick it, I probably would have swapped Chelsea into the other side of the draw and brought Dortmund into ours, because I think they're maybe the slightly more beatable team. They look a bit vulnerable defensively, even though they've got Erling Haaland. You could still turn it into a complete shootout, and I'd back Liverpool's 3 world-class centre-forwards at least that we've got at the moment to be 1 world-class centre-forward that they've got on their side. But of course it would be Chelsea or Porto. It would be an away second leg as well, which potentially complicates things. I think both of them are still good teams. Chelsea have shown that they've found form at the right time in the season, although they are starting to have a little bit of an issue in terms of scoring goals. They're great defensively, they barely concede at all, but going forward it hasn't quite been happening for them. Whether that changes by the time we reach the semi-finals remains to be seen, but there's still a point of weakness there. And then Porto as well, people will see them as the weaker side. People will expect them to get beaten by Chelsea, but they proved against Juventus in the round of 16 that they are absolutely no mugs and that they are almost built for this stage of football. And that's where you really kind of sort the men from the boys in the Champions League. You can have brilliant sides, but they just aren't kind of built for this kind of competition. Man City are the prime example. A brilliant squad, a brilliant manager. They play brilliant football. But when it comes to 2-legged knockout ties on the European stage, it just doesn't seem to happen for them. And what Porto showed in that game against Juventus was that they knew how to win a game over 2 legs. It isn't about, necessarily scoring the most goals even. It ends 4-4 on aggregate, but they scored their goals at the right time. They played the right way at the right moments in the tie, and that's how they got through. So I think they could cause some serious damage to Chelsea if they can find their best form. And I wouldn't completely rule them out. And of course, if we got them in the semis, that's a hell of a revenge mission for them as well. But of course, it's Chelsea or Porto in the semi-finals, which again, I think is reasonably favourable. 3 of the teams that I definitely didn't want until at least the final stage are all in the other side of the draw, which is fantastic. You got PSG playing Bayern. They're probably, I think, outside of us, as an optimist, I will always say that I think Liverpool are going to win the European Cup, but outside of us, I'd say that PSG and Bayern, probably the 2 favourites. PSG look really, really good. Obviously went all the way to the final last year. Bayern have that pedigree of having won the competition. They look like an absolute steamroller at the moment. City, I also wouldn't want because, pardon me, there's a hell of a lot of history between us and them that we wouldn't want to be digging up. You don't really want all of that riding on a final. You want it to just be about the 2 teams against each other. And City, despite the fact that they do tend to crumble at this stage in European football, do look very, very good indeed this season. And as much as I don't want to say it, if they were ever going to get to a final, this is kind of the year. Everything's fallen into place. They have changed their playing style. I think the lack of fans actually helps them in a way. I don't think European atmospheres suited the way they played. It took their focus away. We've seen it firsthand at Anfield. They couldn't play their usual game under the kind of stress and pressures and the atmosphere and the way that Liverpool were playing, fueled by that atmosphere as well in that famous quarter-final tie in 2018. So it's set up quite nicely for them, but they will still have to get past a PSG and the Bayern side to get to the final. And I still wouldn't rule out Dortmund as well, who don't look amazing. Defensively, they are bang average, to be perfectly honest. Sevilla put, I think it was 4 goals in the end past them, and Sevilla aren't, a brilliant attacking unit or anything like that. But what Dortmund do have is the one-man wrecking unit that is Erling Haaland, who normally has about 15 minutes in every game where he just becomes unstoppable, and you might as well drive a tank through the defence. So if he times those bursts well, and the rest of the team, defend well and take advantage of whatever advantage he may give them, then they could still do a little bit of a number on Man City. So I wouldn't rule that out at all. Essentially what I'm saying is the competition is now wide open. It's not like the round of 16 where you can pinpoint and say City will probably beat Gladbach, Real Madrid will probably beat Atalanta, Liverpool will probably beat Leipzig, etc, etc, etc. It's now where any team could win any tie, and any team has a really strong chance of making it through all the way to the final, because at the end of the day, everyone is now just 4 games, that is quick maths, 360 minutes away from making it through to the final in Istanbul. And Liverpool are one of those teams, and I think they have got a better chance than most thanks to this draw, which gives us a Real Madrid team that's kind of lost its shine recently, and a potential final against a Porto team that we know how to beat, and a Chelsea team that maybe hasn't found, you know, its best form just yet. So that is how I think it's going to go down. I think Liverpool have got a real chance to get into the final. What do you think is going to happen? Do you think we're going to make it through all the way to Istanbul? And do you think we've even got a really good chance of lifting that 7th European Cup? Let me know down in the comments below. Apart from that, that is all for today's video. So thank you guys very much for watching. If you did enjoy the video, as always, you know what to do. Hit that like button down there if you're new around here. Hit that like button if you enjoyed it. Subscribe button there if you are new around here. Check out some of the other videos that have been out on the channel over the past few days. Don't forget to follow at LFC Focus TV on Twitter. And I'll be back soon with some more content whenever something else happens in the world of Liverpool. Until then, bye for now.